Two technical officers from the World Bank Group were recently on island to conduct a scoping mission as part of an advisory project which seeks to address regulatory constraints within the OECS. One of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank's strategic goals 2017-2021 is to support OECS member countries to rank in the top 50 in the World Bank Doing Business indicators. Lars Graver is the senior private sector specialist with the World Bank Group.
And we have been invited by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank to look at some of the regulatory procedures and regulatory constraints that affect doing business and private sector development in several of the OECS countries. So we've been visiting a couple of your neighboring countries and speaking with both the public and the private sector in order to get a more complete picture of what are the challenges that businesses face when they interact with government, and learning more about perhaps where we can lend a hand in providing some international good practices and some advice for reforms that these countries may want to undertake.
The National Competitiveness and Productivity Council, NCPC, has been instrumental in coordinating the St. Lucia leg of the visit of the World Bank officials. Director of the NCPC, Fiona Hinkson, explains.
So our role as NCPC is basically to facilitate that process, that public-private dialogue process where they meet with stakeholders within the public service and the private sector as well. And many of the constraints identified included starting a business, getting licenses, accessing concessions, as well as constraints that the private sector have, especially when it comes to exporting their products in relation to certification and standards.
Hinkson noted that this project fits perfectly with the mandate of the NCPC, particularly as it relates to the ease of doing business agenda.
Addressing those regulatory constraints definitely impacts on the business performance, so it helps them to become more productive and also helps them to remove the bottlenecks that they experience on an everyday basis so they can become more efficient in the business operations.
The World Bank's senior private sector specialist said recommendations emanating from this project would include long-term, medium-term, and short-term solutions.
People are very interested, especially in short-term solutions, what we call stroke-of-the-pen reforms, where a leading officer can simply by a stroke of the pen decide that this procedure is going to be made faster, or this information is going to be posted on the website. So these are the short-term recommendations that we can provide and on which government can quickly take action. Then there are the longer-term solutions where we may suggest, well, your legislation could be improved in order to be in compliance with international best practice, but we recognize that that may take a longer time.
The St. Lucia leg of the World Bank project, dubbed Improving Business Regulations within the OECS for Increased Competitiveness, was conducted July 1st to 2nd, 2019. For the National Competitiveness and Productivity Council, Glenn Simon reporting.